I'm sorry that my videos have been a bit dry as of late, but I've been very busy with 2 jobs, cross-dressing, fighting crime at night, mapping for a competition and a girlfriend. Only one of those is a lie. And please don't just think that this video was made because I looked through my older videos to inflate my already bloated ego and found that I had made a Counter-Strike Source rant exactly 5 years ago, then rushed out to make a sequel before the time zone in America moved to March the 15th. Which it did. And I did. And I failed. But I made the video, so there. But first off, welcome to this video. I can't believe that 5 years have passed and yet the world is almost exactly the same. The Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 are still the current consoles, Pet Shop Boys are still releasing awesome music, and people are still arguing endlessly over pointless topics. So anyway, I decided to make another rant video, and I guess I must have succeeded if you are listening to this now, whoever, wherever, and however you might be. But what would I choose to rant about? Would it be about another game? Would I change the styles that people wouldn't think I was ripping off Yahtzee? Would I be wearing clothes when recording this time? The answer to all these questions, and many others, was a resounding no. For yes, I know that I could stick to the same topics and end up being a slave to that kind of video forever, but I've decided to rant about fanboys instead. You know the drill. They endlessly debate and complicate non-controversial topics by giving the different option personalities, that both sides treat each other with respect and have a fair and reasoned debate before hugging each other, thanking each other for the discussion, acknowledging where each other's side has merit, and then they retire to the darkened rooms, wiser and more insightful from the experience. Oh wait, no, that doesn't happen. No. Instead, the debates consist of a putrid mess of argument slinging where apparently everybody has slept with each other's mums. People dig their feet in and refuse to accept when they're wrong, even choosing to make a complete fool of themselves instead of giving the other side any sort of satisfaction. It's the biggest, most egotistic display you can imagine, aside from making videos on YouTube where you talk about your opinions, and these fanboy fart fests have no doubt raged on in numerous forms throughout history. It's just that the almighty internet makes it easier to see how pathetic the whole thing is. Now, before we go any further, I have to admit that I'm not innocent. I've engaged in the above behaviour, sometimes for no better reason than to troll or just to have a conversation with someone. I'm so lonely. Oh, and if you really want to tear down the other side's defences, I find the best way is to pretend to be on their side only to be more extreme and stupid sounding. They'll try to distance themselves from you and your insane ramblings by, oh look, they've switched sides. Okay, so it's somewhat satisfying to artificially construct an argument to find like-minded supporters for your pathetic cause, and to watch both sides completely and utterly decimate any po-faced hippie who tries to take the middle high ground and reach a compromise, poorly veiled by a topic change or the combination of points from both sides that any true fanboy knows just isn't going to work, and that's a well-timed, oh wait, you're right, it's so unexpected that it can cause entire arguments to stop dead in their tracks, all those involved to look around nervously, see how silly the argument has become, only to carry on regardless because stopping's for pussies, or something. Oh, I'm sorry, did I just add a Steam sound to this video? I must be a terrible person. Oh, wait, was that a Facebook one as well? Wouldn't it be terrible if that happened again later on in the video and tricked you, even though you knew it was coming? Why, that really would suck. My god, I've ranted for exactly 2 minutes 27 seconds already and still haven't really gotten started. Anyway, this video was meant to be about computer fanboys. You know, Nvidia versus AMD, AMD versus Intel, PlayStation versus Xbox. All jolly good fanboy-ridden subject matter, and the reason behind those 100-page long forum threads that flare up occasionally in forums worth their weight in salt. Personally, I think that I'm quite fair. I mean, I admit that Nvidia, from the 400 to 500 series of graphics cards, was inferior to AMD at their price points, and that AMD's processors have been trailing behind Intel, not just in performance, but also in power efficiency ever since the Core 2 Duos. Sounds like I'm a fanboy, but what I am able to do is to jump ship based on who is better. At the end of the day, when I'm purchasing a computer, I'm doing so for the best performance at my price point, and I'm not going to support the underdog and suffer the consequences until my next upgrade. I do pity those fanboys to some extent, and in some ways should thank them. Competition is good, and if they're willing to take the plunge and to keep a poorer competitor in business, why not? I just don't want them ramming their opinions down my throat, like vegans and their soya milk, and swingers and their... A common argument fanboys tend to use is to say how overpriced the competitors' products are. Take the i7 series from Intel. It's amazingly fast, power efficient, and somewhat sexy, and priced above any of AMD's processors. Why? Because it performs better. Instead of demanding that Intel lowers their prices, they should be hounding AMD to release faster chips that are able to compete with them in everyday tasks, as that will ultimately cause the prices to fall. Intel isn't alone in doing this. When AMD released their X2 series ages ago, like when Jesus was still alive, they priced them through the roof, since Intel had no competing products. The moment the Core 2 Duos were released, AMD halved the prices, everybody rejoiced and bought new PCs for not much money. Those were the days. And finally, Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Obviously the PlayStation 3 is the best, and anybody who buys an Xbox 360 should chuck it out of a window, then spin around repeatedly until they collapse from dehydration or exhaustion, whichever comes second. Not really, I'm just trying to stir up an argument because I'm lonely. They both run the same games, and in a way I think it would be better if there was just one universal console for developers to design games for, or if it would go back to how it was several generations ago where the games were exclusive to either one or the other. It would be worth it just to get rid of the current fanboy arguments and to go back to the pressing question of who would win in a fight between Mario and Sonic. Obviously Sonic would win. Or maybe we could reach a middle ground where one week Xbox 360 is better and the next the PlayStation 3. See, now I've become a hippie. Thanks fanboys. Okay, so I've probably lost about 99% of my audience by talking about computer hardware and a possible hedgehog fetish, which isn't quite as exciting as moaning about football hooligans or religious folk. I think I should just leave it at this before your respect for me drops even lower. I think that just about covers everything that winds me up about fanboys. For the most part, the internet's a great experience where you get to meet random people online and talk to them. In a good way. Debating can be equally as satisfying, as there is a lot to be learnt from engaging in conversation with people from various backgrounds and social classes. In conclusion, I think that conversation is the way forward towards world peace, but at the moment there are just too many people dissing everyone else on there, which I think is just rubbish. And cut.